3 minutes after the hour 6, I call the Finance Committee meeting to order on March 31st. And before we start, I have to read this from the governor. Pursuant to the governor's Baker of March 12, 2020, order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, chapter 30A, subsection 18, and the governor's March 15, 2020 order concerning imposition of strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. Meetings in the town of Oxford will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. We will strive to provide access to such meetings via a link to call in or other similar option. In the event we are unable to accommodate the same, despite best efforts, we will post recorded sessions of the meeting as soon as possible following the same. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings. With that, I'll call for a roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Present.
Mr. Bacon?
Present.
Ms. Mazeka? Ms. Mazeka?
Present.
Thank you. And Ms. Casey?
Present.
Thank you.
Okay.
And Ms. O'Neill? Ms. O'Neill is absent.
So Neil's absent. Okay, so we have a quorum. First item on the agenda is the minutes of the March 24th meeting. If anybody has any changes, comments to the minutes, if you've all had an opportunity to read them. If you have, hearing no comments or changes needed, I call for a vote to approve the minutes.
Motion to accept. Seconded.
All right. First and seconded.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Mr. Bacon?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Ms. Casey? Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. All right. The first item on the agenda is the budget of the town clerk, Michelle Jenkins. I think she's here to present.
Yes, I
Your
am.
glasses back down. There she is.
Good evening,
Right.
everyone. Good evening. Well, basically, there's not too much difference with my budget. The major change in this year would be the amount of elections. In last year's budget, there were three elections and 2 town meetings. And this one, there will only be the annual town election and the 2 town meetings, the annual and the special in October. So that's going to be the major change as far as the major things with the budget. You know, you can see the difference in the amount of election workers, because last year there was a lot more needed due to the fact that early voting took place numerous times. And as of right now, that's not a mandate. You know, the legislature hasn't passed that for annual town elections as of yet. So that's really pretty much the major change from last year's budget.
Right. Salaries are down about 20,000, 19,289, 8.5%. And then your supplies are down 3,500,
Yes.
$35 or 20%. So your total reduction over last year is 22,824 or 9.3%. And as you said, it's attributable mostly to election workers not needed and supplies, one, to feed them and to have some of these forms that were required for the election itself, obviously.
Yes.
And I see, then of course, you're new, so your salary is a little reduced from
Yes, it
your
is.
predecessor. So that's another factor.
Exactly.
Other than that, does anybody on the committee have any questions? So Michelle? Okay, so
I have a quick question. Just looking at some of the turnout from last elections, I noticed it was pretty low. I'm wondering if, if it makes sense to decrease the number of election, or even just the number of times when people can get out to do the vote. Do we know what time is I know you mentioned there are fewer elections this cycle. When are they? Are they scheduled for the spring or the summer or fall?
Well, the annual town election is always held the third Tuesday in May, and the polling hours are from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's the only election in this budget.
Okay, so just the May election then. And it's just for one day? That's all folks are allowed?
That's state law, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but I did receive this morning, I went out to all the seniors, notifying in their flyer that they can register till April 28th. They were notified that, and I think it's on the website to register for early voting, and they can get absentee ballots and stuff. So there's already been an outreach to tell the community. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean that people will vote. People that vote are usually the seniors. It's sad to say, unless it's that there's a hot ticket item that's going to affect somebody's budget. But so they've already done an outreach, because I myself this morning received in my monthly senior letter all that information regarding the town meeting on May 5th and the election on May 8th, and the fact that you have until tomorrow to register for town meeting. And I think end of April 28th to register for the town election on May 8th. So
it might just be, and it might just be me, John, because I don't know what my issue is with technology sometimes, but I don't always get, these kinds of notifications. And so oftentimes I'm surprised, or, I hear about it in these meetings, which is great to hear. I feel like I'm getting more involved in the community, of course, but it's just, I wonder about other people like myself who might be newer to the area, or who may not have those connections and may not know where to get the information, and I'm hearing that there's registration dates that are closing. And I know I've gone to the website in the past to get certain types of information or to sign up for email notifications and things like that. So I guess I just wonder about that. And, if the election's in May, it's not, we are still in a pandemic state. So I wonder if that, restriction is appropriate. So I'll be interested to hear if there's any additional changes there.
Well, I know there's a Facebook, the town has a Facebook page as well. So
yeah, I'm not on Facebook. I know some people are. So I'm not quite in that group of folks on Facebook, really. But I hear you. I'm used to seeing things like in a newspaper, like a.
And then of course the town website has a calendar of all the events, including our meetings and every other town meeting, whether it's a planning board or a budget meeting of some sort. Well, even if it's a bid opening, those things are all on YouTube, and they're also on the calendar. So there is a way to see that. Again, there's a propensity for whatever the reason. It's not just in our community; it's pervasive. I think across the state. Only time the wheel gets oiled is if it's squeaking. In other words, if there's an issue that affects you personally, either your budget or whatever, taxes or whatever, people tend to pass it, except for the seniors.
So, John, let me ask, do we send out mailers by any chance? I know that's like an old school way of doing things, but it does catch folks like me who have less of a technological footprint. I just wondered about that because, I received a ton of them recently for jury duty that ended up being canceled. But I wonder if that kind of approach makes sense in the community to make sure that folks are getting this type of information. When we have such restrictions, I worried about access. That's all.
I know that the town managers made every effort. I mean, I'll give you a good example. The Celeste Malinsky Trust, it's been in the paper. We've had a website. We've done mailings to get people to apply. Now, this isn't voting, to get people to apply for free money for their sports and their children's activity in the town. And it's like a long effort. So that's kind of where we're at. But we're going to get away from what we're here to talk about tonight. And the next item on the budget on the
John?
Yes.
John, I have a question.
Sure.
I believe that Michelle said that the May town meeting is the only one in this budget, but I think the October one is too, right?
Yeah, it's the May election and
May
the
election,
May
and
election, the May town meeting, next year, and October, the special. Yes.
And that doesn't require
right.
doesn't require election officials and
right. I'm sorry, I
machines.
mixed them up. Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'd like to move on to human resources. And,
thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. Have a good
Welcome
night.
aboard. Thank you for your,
Thank you very much.
Joanne Frederick, Human Resources.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I have prepared a PowerPoint, so I am going to try to share that with you at this moment.
Great.
Okay, let's see. It doesn't seem to be coming up. Here we go. Can you see that?
Yes, I
Yes.
can.
Okay. So I think it might be easier if there's questions on something in particular on one of the screenshots. Maybe you ask it while we're on that screenshot. That might be easier than waiting till the end. There's 19 slides, so I just want to make sure that I answer any questions that you might have.
Fair enough.
So I've been here for a little over 2 years. I was hired in February of 2019, and I'm a full-time 40-hour plus work week individual. And in August of last year, I had the ability to hire a senior clerk, and her name is Amanda, and she works for me 20 hours a week. So that is the makeup of my department at the current time.
Okay.
And what we provide as far as services for the town is I am currently the ADA officer as well as the sexual harassment officer.
Okay.
We process biweekly payrolls for 178 active town employees. We do not process the payroll for the school. That's done by their HR person. We administer benefits for 268 active and retired employees in both the town and the school. I handle the unemployment. I handle the workers' comp. I am trying to do training for our department heads and employees. And obviously I do the recruitment to fill the positions that are open when they become available. So I just wanted to give you some metrics on HR and how many HR professionals should be supporting what number of employees. So this is from Bloomberg. So basically the rule of thumb is the ratio that there should be 1.4 full-time HR staff per 100 employees. So I'm basically at 1.5. And you'll see this more when we get towards the end, when you see how many folk are on our benefit plans. But there's about 508 employees or retirees, both combined, that we manage in a year on a day-to-day basis. So we're way short of the ratio as far as personnel in the office. And that is one of the additions that's in my budget this year. So I just kind of wanted to highlight this fact. And I'll keep moving on from here. So we had the COVID pandemic. I know everyone's probably, up to their ears in hearing about COVID, but COVID did put a lot more tasks on HR. We had a reduction in workforce, which required meeting with employees, which was done between myself and the town manager. We did it on a very personal level. We met individually with each person via phone at that time and explained, that they were being furloughed and what was going to happen with their benefits. And we really tried to put, the best spin we could on having to furlough these employees. We also had to track the benefits for the furloughed employees because they were not being paid through the town anymore. They were still eligible to maintain their benefits, but they would have to recoup the town through either a personal check payment or when they returned to their full-time status, if they did indeed return to full-time status. And as you are aware, we did have to do some layoffs in July to some of those furloughed employees due to the budget cuts. So, we had to, in the HR department, mostly myself at that time, because I didn't have my new hire, we had to make sure to recoup those benefit costs to make the town whole. So that was a process of sending out letters and second letters and third letters, in some cases, to get those employees to pay what their portions of the benefits were. We had to create all PDF fillable documents for all of our benefits, as well as, W-4 forms, I-9 forms, anything that we would need to receive to make any kind of change to an employee. We had to create that as a fillable form and get that on the town's website, so that we could, folk could have access to this information to be able to change things that they needed to have changed. And we also, set up Zoom meetings, because during this whole process, we did have the open enrollment period for our retirees that are 65 plus. So we had to communicate with them and find a way to communicate with them to allow them to know what changes were happening to their medical plans. And, most of the retirees 65 plus are probably not super savvy technically. And so we had to do a lot of mailings as well, and a lot of follow-up, just to make sure that everyone was aware of the changes and make sure that, we knew exactly what plans folk wanted to be on. And then, any other miscellaneous items that came up, that we had to reach out and do due to not having, the town hall open and being able to meet these individuals in person. Even new hires, that will all had to be automated. So it was a lot of work, but we got it done. I just want to go through a number of the HR accomplishments that I have been able to achieve over the last 2 years, just to kind of bring you up to date and what am I doing over here? What are you paying me for? So one of the things that we did is we changed to a monthly benefit accrual. And the reason we're doing that is there's three major reasons. As a recruiting tool, because it's very difficult for us to have a new hire come and start working for the town of Oxford and telling that individual, you cannot take any time off until you've been here a year. I don't think there's anywhere in the private sector that folk go somewhere and don't get any time off for an entire year. And that's sort of how our benefits were set up when I started in Oxford. So we wanted, excuse me?
90 days?
Now it's 30 days. So after 30 days, they start to accrue.
Okay.
It's a waiting period of 30 days. Yep. And then it also reduces the exposure for the town, because a lot of times, and I've seen this, I worked in the town of Southbridge prior to coming here on the school side. What happens is everybody gets their front load in July. And then if, they're a disgruntled employee, they're leaving sometime in July, and you are paying out all that vacation that you may not have budgeted for, because unbeknownst to you, you didn't think that person was going to leave. And all of a sudden, now you have 2 people leave and they have 4 weeks of vacation that you have to pay out because it's all front loaded.
So you're accruing all the benefits?
Excuse me?
You're accruing all the benefits?
I am accruing the time off benefits.
Okay, so vacation earned, holiday earned.
Vacation, sick, and personal. Those are the 3 benefits.
Right, okay.
Okay.
That's
And
good
then,
accounting.
yeah. And then it just reduces this, as I'm stating, these liabilities that kind of spring up because, people tend to say, oh, well, I'm going to wait till I have all my time, front loaded, instead of going in June when I only have 16 hours to be paid out of vacation. I'm going to wait till July when I have, 120 hours.
What's the carryover on allowed? What are they allowed to carry over or accrue?
When we changed to monthly accruals, we allowed them to carry over 2 weeks. It used to be 1 week, but then we felt that it would be more of a benefit because they were so used to having that time right away in July that we'd give them the 2 weeks in July. So they can carry over 2 weeks of whatever their schedule is.
Okay.
Okay. We also, I also cleaned up the Hopper's payroll time and attendance system. I used to be a customer service rep many years ago for Hoppers, so I know the system very well. And you may or may not be aware, but any of the employees who are punching in and out or requesting time off through Hoppers, we're paying a fee per month for those employees of $2.95. And we had all kinds of employees, election workers, inspectors, people who will never punch in or out, people who are not eligible for benefits. We were paying $2.95 for all of those folk. So when I came in, I recognized this and I cleaned it all up. So we ended up we're saving about $241 a month by me removing all of those people that should have never been in the time and attendance system from the beginning. So, you know, that's saving about $1,200 a year for the town by me being very, I guess, you know, proactive at making sure that who's ever in time and attendance truly needs to be in there and removing anyone else who doesn't. So some savings for the town there. We also, and I'm sure I listened to the meeting when the town manager presented, and she talked about the DPW pay plan. That was a huge project that took us probably a little over a year to develop the new job descriptions that hadn't been looked at since, God, it was like the early 2000s. Giving opportunity for DPW individuals to get more licensures or certifications, which would allow them to be able to move to a different tier, which would then give them an increase in pay. So kind of putting the ball in the court of the employee saying, okay, if you want to get more pay with the town, then if you accomplish, you know, getting your, I don't know, I'll just throw something out like your HutWorks license, then if that's a credential for that next tier and you get that credential, then the following July fiscal year, you can move into that new tier and be on that new pay rate. So we wanted to give them some upward momentum, not just if you're a light equipment operator, you're a light equipment operator. When you max out, there's nowhere to go. It's in their court. If they want to move up and they want to do the work, they can get paid more. If they don't, then they're going to max out. So we wanted to, you know, to get them motivated, because what does that do for the town? If we can get our DPW folk certified and trained in more areas, then we don't have to contract out as much, right? So I'm not a DPW worker, but like say we need to do something, I don't know, build something or whatever, and we usually contract out. Well, if we can get some DPW employees to get those certifications or licensures, then we don't have to contract out anymore. We have the internal means to get these folks to do the jobs. So it was a huge, huge task. It went really well. We had probably 13 DPW members on the committee, along with Katie, Jen Callahan, myself, and at that time, Sean Duvall. So huge project, great initiative. And, I haven't seen anybody going for new licensures or certifications, but hopefully we can get them motivated if I can get out there and help them, find the locations to get the trainings and such.
Are you doing this with any other departments?
We have not yet, but we have been discussing possibly doing this with the town pay plan, for the future. So hopefully we'll be looking at other areas. Yes.
Okay.
This is just an example of how this is a snapshot of the actual huge license spreadsheet that I have that says, if you're a operator 1, you have to have a Class B license. You have to have HutWorks. You have to, if you get the following licenses, you can move up to a Class B. It's just a snapshot so you can see that we've got all of this documented. Another thing that we did is we had been using a company called All One Health to do our physicals and drug screenings. And Not really sure why we ever went with them. I think it was something to do because they were affiliated with Maya. So I think my predecessor probably just signed up to use their services. The problem that we were coming into with All One Health is they were taking a real long time to turn around our physical and drug results, especially for our firefighters and police officers. It was sometimes taking 4 weeks for us to get the okay to hire those people and get them on board. And that's just way too long. Those are critical needs for the town, and we need to get those people on as soon as possible. So we decided to go direct with Reliant Medical. And in doing so, I was able to save us money by negotiating with them. So if you look at like the basic physical, we were getting charged $120 through All One. Reliant is charging us now only $85. So we're saving $35 on every one that we send for that physical, et cetera, et cetera. So if we had 5 firefighters come on board, or even on call, which we're in the process of hiring right now, we could save about $635. So, you know, any savings to me are good savings. So I'm always trying to look at some way to, what can we do to save a few dollars? So this was one of the other accomplishments that we just recently did, effective. I believe this just happened last month. The other item which you're aware of, or may not be aware of, or may be aware of, is we created what's called a benefit guides booklet. It's a very comprehensive booklet that contains information pertaining to every benefit that the town offers in detail in a one-stop location, right? So you can go in there and find out anything you want to know about any of the Fallon plans. You can go in there and find out anything you want to know about FSA. You can go in there and find out anything about dental. And so what we will do is annually during our because our new benefit year is coming up and open enrollment is coming up, we will just update that benefits guide. And that benefit guide is out on the website for the town, and it's also on our Harper's Payroll Employee Forward self-service page. It's as a quick link. So this is just an area for folk in the town to be able to go and see, you know, exactly what we offer for benefits. So huge undertaking. Amanda, who works for me, did a lot of work on this, so I have to give her some of the kudos. She did a lot of that work for me. And then now that we're going to be introducing during this open enrollment period, we've also created what we're calling universal benefit enrollment forms. So in the past, if you've worked for the town, you'll recall that you would have had to fill out a form for Fallon, and a form for Altus, and a form for IMED, and a form for LTD. You had to fill out multiple forms in order to select your benefits. We've combined all of that now into, it's probably about 4 forms. And this year, we're going to be asking everybody to complete these forms because I will really want to have the most current data in my files. I want to make sure that I have everything that I need to know about somebody's benefits at my hands. I'm not always comfortable that I have everything I need, what's been left for me. So this will give me a way of having everything accurate, up to date. And it also is a lot faster for the employees because they don't have to go and fill out multiple forms. They just fill this out and we take it from there. And then at the end, we have a section where we say all of this was completed, we sign off, we date it, and we send it back to the employee for their record. So this will help. So, you know, because people just don't look at their pay stubs because they don't go online and check them. This is a way for us to ensure that we're communicating better and that we have accurate information. So this will be rolling out for this open enrollment period in April. And our latest accomplishment is we now have an online hiring and onboarding module. And so what does that mean? Well, that means now through our Harper's payroll system that all of our jobs are posted in this system. So when employees apply, even if you go to the Town of Oxford website, if you click on the job, it's going to put you right into this onboarding module. And in the onboarding module, you submit your resume, you do your application, you do your whatever form, do your cover letter, and all the department heads have access to this, and they can go in and review the candidates that have applied. We can then set up interviews through the system, and then we can do our hiring through the system. So we create our offer letters. We have what's called a workflow, and that workflow has Katie on it as the director of finance, Jen Callahan as the town manager to sign off on the offer letters, but everything is done through the system. So now everything is maintained in the system. There's no more paper. There's no having to keep file folders and file folders and file folders of all these different jobs that we posted for, because everything is maintained in here. And we have been using it. We started using it with the fire department for some internal jobs that we posted. And now we have just posted all of our summer program jobs, and those are external and they're on Indeed, and it's working. We're still working out some bugs. It's not 100% perfect yet. I'm still getting some bugs out, but it's just a more efficient and effective way. And it's just seems to, I'm going to be doing a training actually too next week with all of the department heads on, usage of it. So just another way to, automate and get things moving and getting away from the heavy paper pushing that we do. Unemployment this year, you're probably aware, you've probably seen it in the news. There was a lot of fraudulent claims this year. Many fraudulent claims. People who were working full time, and there were claims being submitted for them. So what I started doing when I came is I have a mechanism where I have a spreadsheet and I track every single employee who files a claim. And I do that in order for me to double check and make sure there isn't any fraudulent claims and we're not paying out, because we pay direct. So there's no insurance here. We get billed directly from unemployment for everybody that they've paid unemployment to. This gives me the ability to quickly see where people are at, and if they're only supposed to get 26 weeks of benefits, and I'm running down their total, benefit amount, I can make sure that, it doesn't go beyond the 26 weeks, et cetera. So it's just a little thing I've always done. And so I've been doing it here, and it was super beneficial this year because of all of the fraudulent claims. So when I did have fraudulent claims, I did reach out to the employees. I let them know, and then there was a website where they needed to log on and let the state know that someone had filed a fraudulent claim on their behalf. The other thing I've been doing is I've been handling your appeals. I've probably been on 5 appeal hearings since I've been here, and I've won 3 of the 5. So what that means is we're not paying unemployment to that person. So when it's a legitimate, appeal where the person, just terminated employment and then filed and wants to collect, I represent the town in that hearing and bring the facts. And, I've been successful 3 times, so we haven't had to pay unemployment to those folks. So again, that saves the town money. This is just an example of my tracking sheet for unemployment. So it just gives you the person's name and when they started, and if they're school or town, and the first time they collected and what they collected. And in this year, because of COVID, the state reimbursed us 50% of some of the claim amounts. So that's where you see the credits, and then it just keeps a running balance. So I do that for every single person. And this year there was a lot to track because of the furloughs and layoffs.
You track both the town and the school benefits?
I do both. Just for the unemployment right now, I do the town and the school.
The town and school. You do the other benefits for the school as well? You don't do their payroll?
I don't do their payroll. That's actually been an ongoing conversation because it is very difficult for me in my department to really oversee the benefits, I feel, to the level that they need to be seen or done at. When you have 2 entities working in that area. So I'm responsible to balance all of the invoicing that comes in for each vendor. So we get the bills and then we have to go through and make sure it balances with our spreadsheet. We have had difficulty more so when they had at the school when they had the other younger woman working there. They have a new lady now who's much better. But there's still difficulty with that. So I know when I worked in Southbridge, the treasurer's office did everything with the benefits. Nobody touched the benefits but the treasurer's office. I would like to see at some point all of that coming to just the town side and us managing everything. But that's a discussion for another day, I guess.
I'm a little familiar with it, having had to reconcile or have my department reconcile those benefits. So you could be paying an extra month or two or not the other way. They think they have a benefit that they don't have.
Correct.
Reconciling that. So you're making an effort, I think, to get that reconciled between you and the school department at some point.
Yes, sir. I'm actually taking it a step where I've created what's called a balancing sheet. Okay. So I track every benefit for both the school and the town side. So we're talking 300 plus people every pay period to make sure that deductions came out. So I can give you an example of why I'm saying this is problematic. Today I was doing that, and when I got to the school department, I found that there was a person who didn't have a deduction. I went to the payroll for the school department. I saw she didn't get paid. I wrote to the school department and said, what's up with this person? Are they not supposed to be on benefits because I haven't terminated their benefits? Oh, well, that person's not working. They're out until, I don't know, April 5th. They're coming back after April 5th. So I said, so what are you doing about her benefits? She owes us money. So if I didn't do this detailed tracking and this detailed balancing, I would have not known about it. We would probably never recoup that money. So right. This is the problem of having two individuals kind of doing it. I think if it was all under one umbrella, it would probably be a little easier. But, again, I don't want to overstep my boundaries on that.
But it's a universal problem. I've encountered it numerous times in the private sector. So what you're saying happens all the time, month on month, and It's thousands and thousands of dollars.
You're right, and we have corrected a ton of stuff since I've been here, and I think we've got it managed much more than it's ever been. But there's still work to be done. Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
So the future goals that I have is I am working on a new employee handbook or personnel manual, however you want to refer to it. It's it takes a while. We want to make sure everything's up to date and current with all the changes, especially with FMLA. There's been multiple changes. So I work on that when I have a couple of moments, which doesn't always happen too frequently. I wish it was faster. We are looking to implement through the Harper's payroll system an open enrollment module next. So what that will mean is that everybody would now then sign up for their benefits online through the Harper's module. And then that module would shoot out the information to, Fallon, Altus, and then at the same time, update that person's deductions. Right. So that should help to really, take away some of the problems that we've seen over the years. That's going to be a big undertaking. I don't want to bite off on that one until I'm sure I have the time to invest in it. So I'm hoping to get started with that, pretty soon. And then we need to create online checklists for folks who are planning on retiring, because they don't know what they're supposed to do. And they'll call me, the month they're going to retire, and sometimes that's too late to transition them over to the different benefits they need to be on and such. So I think not only getting training set up to have Worcester Regional come in and do some training to kind of get people prepared and mass teachers retirement coming in, but also for us to have some basic checklists that they can pull off our website and say, okay, I need to contact Joanne. I need to fill out this retirement form. I need to do this. So I want to start building out some of that information as well.
are they going to be able to have a retirement? And I know one of the things with teachers, they have to have their years of service with mass teachers retirement.
Yep.
And I know that sometimes they end up going to the town they taught in and having to go through payroll records to find out that they taught those last
Yep.
2 years of 1962
Yep.
or 63. So, I mean, that's going to be, you're going to make that a better opportunity for a retiree.
Yes.
They don't realize what they have to do until it's too late, like you said.
Yep. And we do that for folk. I've done that for individuals here who have wanted to buy back their time.
Right.
Where they weren't contributing to the retirement,
Right.
in Worcester County or Mass Teachers, I've had to go downstairs and go through, 10,
Right.
12 years of records to pull that together. Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, hopefully someday there'll be a better way of doing that.
Now, let me ask you something about Harper's. I'm familiar now. I'm not familiar with them. I'm familiar with ADP and Paychecks. When you're going back to the employment manual,
Yep.
they had templates for us to work with the department heads. Is Harper's offer anything like that? So you don't start with a blank piece of paper?
Yes, I have
Everything?
templates. I do have templates. I have like a handbook template. Yes.
Right.
And there's other types of templates as well. Yes.
So that the department heads can all work like you did with the DPW, can work on job descriptions, job performance, and
Yep.
and standard measurements.
Yep, I've redone all of the job descriptions. So as we hire a new position that's on the old format, I have revised them into the new format so it contains now, make sure it contains the EEO, it contains the work environment, it contains the physical, requirements for the job. It's definitely been revised and modernized, and I'm using a template for that.
Yeah,
So, yes.
Yeah, it would help a lot. I mean, I know when we did it, we had everything from sexual discrimination, but a lot of the mandates. I mean, I'll give you one that we had to set up a place and designate it for lactate stations within the office.
Yes.
So these are the types of things that you
Yes.
have to, by law, you have to have in your manual.
Yes.
And it was all indexed and everything. Then we put it on electronically. So as laws
Correct.
change, we could change the manual without having to incur printing costs.
Yep,
And-
absolutely. Correct. Yep. And there's items like that we need to do. And I need to just be able to get some time away from doing, the day-to-day things so that I can start focusing on those bigger items.
The biggest disconnect is job titles versus job duties. Titles are misleading when I started comparing other companies.
Mhm.
What I called an accountant and what the duties were, and what they called an accountant, what the duties were. I was, matching a bookkeeper or a full charge bookkeeper with an accountant, and it was oil and water. It wasn't the same.
Mhm.
So that's one of the benefits of having the job descriptions and duties and requirements. You get away from the titles, which are misleading when you start comparing them outside
Correct.
the community.
And we had to do that anyway because the new law went into effect for the exempt pay rate, the minimum exempt pay rate.
Right.
I believe that went in July of 19. So we had to revisit what we were classifying as exempt positions to see if they really met the criteria to be
Right.
exempt. So we did do that process, and we have done that process internally. So we did take care of that piece of what we needed to do. So this is the almost the last slide. So this is my budget, and I only put down anything that's changing. So the biggest change to my budget is hiring a payroll benefits coordinator, really to come in and support HR, if we move to taking over all of the benefits, but at the same time, just having another person who can understand the complexities of moving somebody who's retiring and moving their benefits and understanding what's involved with that. And also, Amanda's only here 20 hours a week. She pays all of the bills. She does some balancing for me. Those hours go really fast. And then the rest of the time is, I'm picking up whatever has to be done. So to have an additional person to come in to help and also, be another backup for payroll. So I don't have to, always worry about being here on a payroll week. it would be beneficial. And then the only thing that changed as far as a line item for me is that my account for a job and advertisement and office supplies went up by $1,500. And the reason for that is we did a lot of advertising on MMA because we had a lot of director positions that came available, and it's about $325 for one advertisement. And it depends how you do it. You can do it smarter by just doing a link and it would be $75, but sometimes the whole job was posted. So that really bit into my budget. And then we also want to be able to recognize people who retire, by getting them some sort of like a plaque or a going away, for being here for 30 years or whatever. So those were things that weren't really budgeted the year before. So that's really the only change to the line items. The other ones went down, and the travel stayed the same. So that, I know there's an increase on the HR side, but it's really that benefits coordinator position.
Yeah, that's the key. So your budget basically with that benefits coordinator and the changes you made, you're at $45,089 increase or 38%. But the key is, and I think you pretty much articulated your goals and the holes that you're trying to fill and what that role is between you and that new person, because you have a lot, you've outlined a lot of things that need to be done that have not been done or brought to date, and you're working on them. So I can see your vision.
Mm-hmm.
And an employee handbook and all the job descriptions and all the things you got to do, like you did with the DPW, it needs to be done across the board, and not just for the town. At some point, you got to wrangle in the school department too. At some point, I mean, if you're going to have a universal system, it's got to be universal.
Yeah,
you got to have one standard.
Yep, I agree, sir. And I just thought this would be helpful to give you this information. So I just tried to pull together, our different plans that we offer and how many people are enrolled in each plan and what the annual cost is based upon the current rates, right now, not the new ones that will be coming into effect. So interestingly enough, we manage 283 retirees across 5 different plans. So, the retirement cost on that is $559,000. So, I mean, that's a lot of money that, we're making sure it's coming in, and, making sure these people have their benefits and everything's, running smoothly for them. And then for active employees, we have a total of, it should be 226. I apologize.
Yeah, it says active, yeah, 226. Yeah.
Yeah, my apologies.
And then
We have
family and
144 families and 82 individuals on our Fallon plans at almost $3 million. So that's a huge bill invoice when that one comes in and we have to go through that with a fine-tooth comb. It's time consuming. It can take hours to do. And then the only other item that the town, supplements any of the costs to is the basic life insurance through the standard. And we have a combination of retirees and actives on that of 243 people. The cost is really low. So it's only almost $1,700 a year. But when you add all of that up, it's $3,500,000 plus dollars that, we're watching for you. So we want to continue to do the best we can do and make sure we capture and correct and, reduce costs as much as possible.
Doesn't take much for it to be a couple of months bill will be off, and we'd be out $20,000-$30,000 in a month with 8 or 12 employees that are misclassed, whether they're family or married or married or single, or their dependents, whatever. I mean, it's horrendous to reconcile those bills.
Yep.
And I'm glad to see you're automating it, because that's probably the only way you'll ever get it right because you're always a month behind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other sad part. You're not getting your last month's bills, what you're reconciling. I'm very familiar with this, having done this numerous times with the various companies I work with, and finding hundreds of thousands of dollars that we're missing. So you're managing 3.5 million. It's a lot of money, and it can go south real quick. I can see that.
That could, yes. So that's the end of my show. So I don't know if anybody has any other questions for me in regards to anything I presented.
Committee have any questions?
No, very good.
Very good. We understand what you're doing and what you're trying to do and your needs, and you well presented. Thank you so much for your time and your efforts.
You're very welcome. Have a good evening.
Thank you. You too. All right. Next up is DPW, Jared Duvall.
Good
Hi,
evening.
Jared.
Good evening,
Welcome.
Mr. Chairman and the rest of the committee. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
So I've prepared a little presentation as well. So if I may, I'll share that now. If
Go ahead.
I can share my screen.
Yes, please do.
All right.
And congratulations on that bridge. It was only over $126,000. That Carappa Bridge.
Yes, we got a lot of interest in that project. 12 bids total. We're reviewing bids now. Bid last week. So
Yes, I saw that with bated breath. Thank you.
yes.
It was over budget.
Any particulars you want to discuss, Mr. Ewell, I'd be happy to do that.
Well, I'm just happy
offline.
that it came in at where it came in at. So that's great. But go ahead with your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm Jared Duvall, DPW Director, here to present the fiscal year 2022 operating budget. Our agenda for tonight, we'll start with my purpose for being here tonight is to gain support for the recommended FY22 DPW operating budget, sewer enterprise budget, and municipal fuel budget. So I'll start with a brief overview of the department, and then we'll drill down into the operating budget, go through each service area and operating division, and then we'll move to the sewer enterprise fund and municipal fuel budget. And if you have any questions along the way, feel free to interject. If not, we'll leave time for discussion and questions at the end. So I'd like to start just with presenting the committee and the public here with our mission statement. It's through the budget that you have before you tonight that we look to advance this mission. So this is, I know this is a busy slide, and I think, it's fittingly so. We have our men and women in public works are very busy taking care of all this. So I just wanted to provide sort of the overall scope and scale of what we do. DPW's charge is to plan, design, construct, operate, and maintain the town's infrastructure and assets. And that's everything from drainage systems to buildings to parks and playing fields and bridges, dams as well. So I think this is pretty staggering when you look at the metrics here and you consider that, a department of 31 full-time equivalents is tasked in maintaining it. So I'd like to commend, take the opportunity now to thank the men and women in public works for the good work they do and say that I'm very proud to be a part of this team here. And this is just an overview here of our organization. I mentioned the 31 full-time equivalents that's spread across 7 operating divisions demonstrated in the org chart. So our budget goals for FY22, as I mentioned, just to reiterate, this budget here is to facilitate our mission and advance our objectives that are stated therein. We also want to support openness, integrity, and accountability, basically promote transparency and ensure that we're being good stewards of public dollars. We hope to support other departments through this budget, invest in town infrastructure, especially preventative maintenance work, support beautification efforts, which beautification is more than just planting flowers. This is everything from the flowers you do see, but the ornamental furniture at Jocelyn Park, maintaining and preserving our public shade trees, mulching, a whole slew of efforts, to really draw people into our public spaces, create a sense of place. There's an adage I like to use that infrastructure is destiny. And I guess more simply that if you build it, they will come. So I think beautification is certainly a component of that. And if we can create pleasant places to be, I think that residents not only in town, but maybe out of town will be more inclined to come here, and businesses included. I hope to also invest in our people through this budget, support professional development, continuing education, provide safe, sustainable infrastructure for people of all ages and abilities. That's a big one. And again, just having hinted on or alluded to this in the beautification efforts, is make Oxford an even better place to live, work, and play. And now, beyond just our budget before you tonight, we'll also seek to pursue grants to supplement the budget and further our investment in town infrastructure. So Dan, there's several programs that are on our radar, two of which from the list here that we've already applied for since I've been here: the dam and seawall repair program and winter shared streets and spaces, which some of you may know, we actually were successful and received the maximum $300,000 award under the winter shared streets and spaces program. And that's to that's for some really substantial pedestrian safety improvements along the downtown and corridor at all of our mid-block crossings. So that'll include flashing beacons and median refuge islands. So that work is underway. The design work is underway now.
What are you doing with the seawall and culvert
That
grant?
is for McKinstry Pond. So we applied once more for both design monies and for construction monies. And we're still awaiting a response. So here's just a budget overview for both the public or all of the budgets before you tonight. Public Works budget, you can see the FY20 actual costs. This is all information from the budget sheets that you have, but just wanted to display it here. And then the change FY22 over FY21. So there is an increase to the Public Works operating budget, a little over 8% increase. And we'll drill into some of those, where those changes lie in a moment. Sewer Enterprise Fund, you can see there's a decrease. And again, we'll touch on that a little later. And a slight increase in the municipal fuel budget. And here's just further summary going by division or service area for the Public Works operating budget. Again, so you can see, the committee can see where the changes lie. And just another demonstration of that summary, just to see each slice of the pie and how that operating budget is apportioned. So starting with our first operating division here, we have facilities maintenance. And you can see we've broken it down here by salaries and services and supplies rather than go down every line. It's quite a lengthy budget. I'm sure you're aware from the document in front of you. So you see an increase there in the salaries line. The biggest reasons for that change is that we have a senior clerk that is going back to, or proposing to go back to, their 35-hour regular shift that had been reduced going into FY21 due to COVID. We also have 2 part-time custodians. This is one of the largest contribution to that change. 2 part-time custodians out of our 5 now that have transitioned to full-time in FY21 amid the COVID response. So we had to furlough some custodians initially. When we were able to, we transitioned the ones that we had on staff to full-time and then brought back the part-timers that we had. And we're finding that the level of service that we're able to provide amid the pandemic, we've been able to keep up with all the cleaning needs that we need to. So we're proposing to, given the uncertainty with COVID still being amid the pandemic, that we maintain that staffing level. And this will also allow us to cover seasonal or facilities with seasonal spikes in occupancy, such as the Carbuncle Beach House. We could cover that now with the full-time hours rather than hire another part-timer, which was initially proposed, and I think may have been proposed last year. And then there's some salary wage increases per the FY21 pay plan that was instituted in DPW. So you'll see a 2.5% increase on salaries. Services and supplies increased as well. So we're seeing increase mainly to the purchase of service line. We're doing more preventative maintenance work now than we ever have been. I think we're capturing more work than we ever have been too in our computer maintenance and management system. So we're really getting the full picture of the work that we have on our slate. Work orders are up 10% this year. So with the increase in work, we have not increased our staffing in terms of facilities maintenance techs or facilities maintenance superintendent. So there's a need to go outside for that work, and that's reflected here. Increased supplies to support the increase in PM work. So more work, more PMs that we're getting in, obviously more supplies that we need to tackle that work. And I just wanted to note below, we just look at talking about going outside and capacity internally, best practices indicate that one full-time equivalent maintenance tech per 100,000 square feet of building floor is ideal. So we would need 6 full-time equivalents of facilities techs to meet that. We presently have 3. So you can see that we're doing the best that we can, certainly. And I commend our facilities techs for the work they do and how they're able to keep up, but still not quite where we want to be. Yes, Mr. Yule.
You have a question. I have a question that you had a request for 44,862 for a mechanic, and the town manager did not recommend that. And I was wondering, and you're talking about maintenance, and that's
so this is actually facilities maintenance. That I believe you're referring to the fleet maintenance.
Right, I am, but it's maintenance. You had 4 technicians that were maintenance on the facility on the top here for technicians for maintenance. It says facilities maintenance technicians. Well, that went up $4,000. That's $176,672.
Yeah, I'm seeing it's three full-time equivalents though spelled out beneath. No, under description. That's what I'm seeing on the budget document.
Yeah, three technicians, correct, full-time.
Yes, yep, and that's what I'm touching upon here, just in terms of that metric that is sort of a best practice in the industry, and again, just to provide another metric in terms of custodial service, it's usually recommended that we have one full-time, or that you have one full-time equivalent per 30,000 square feet of building area. At the proposed staffing level here, it'll bring us to 3.5 full-time equivalents. So we'll achieve about 1 full-time equivalent per 50,000 square feet. So it's an improvement certainly there.
Yeah, well, that went up, what, $36,341 or
exactly. So that's the bulk. That's again 74% of the increase of that 49,404 is just that. So that's the bulk of it.
Okay.
Administration and engineering. So the increases to the salary line were pretty minimal. That's because we saw, although we had an admin assistant going back to 35 hours, that would increase it. There's been a decrease to the director salary line. So it's sort of balances out there. So it's pretty much no change. Going down into services and supplies, electricity was a big component of that increase, just to keep us more in line with historical expenditures. So there's been an increase to cover that. We've increased our training and development budget lines for professional development. We've identified the MCPPO, so Certified Public Purchasing Official trainings and project management, professional certifications. We're trying to support continuing development of our staff here in administration and engineering. So that's part of our goal, and that's reflected there. There's also been an increase in professional services, and that's namely due to the increase for annual McKinstry Pond dam inspections, which we're mandated to do under our dam safety order. And there's a slight increase to supplies and materials just to cover the copy machine rental. So if there's no questions here, I'll just continue.
Well, I mean, your whole budget is up. I got that. But what you requested and what the town manager recommended, there's a big difference.
There certainly is. Yeah. So I know, looking at FY21's request, sorry.
Yeah, it was 353,000 difference, 353,844. So it was a huge, and I'm just, the $1 million question I have of you, are you going to be able to, are you comfortable with the budget as outlined?
I am. I think, and I think this is certainly not going to be the first that you've heard of it in the budget presentations. And I know the committee's full well aware we're still amid a pandemic. So, coming in here, I identified probably, I wouldn't call it a wish list of things that I'd want to accomplish in year one, but, I certainly shot for the moon with the request, and full well understanding that we are still in a pandemic and there's a lot of uncertainties there. So, I think that while we're very grateful for the increase that's, been recommended and put before you, we realize that we still need to be conservative. So I think that's reflected in the increase that you do see. And I feel confident that we can still fulfill our mission with the budget that we have here.
All right. Although the only question I had on this whole budget was that one mechanic that I mentioned. It was, you know.
Yeah,
out there
so
on
I think,
fleet maintenance.
I think we had trialed that before, going back a couple of years, and I think it needs a little more thought as to the caliber of person that we bring in. I think we maybe started that when we had tried it previously as a part-time, and I think the experience level and expertise just wasn't there. So I
So
think
you're
that
outsourcing?
what's that?
You're outsourcing then? I mean,
No, we had a part-timer that, and I'm not sure if that part-timer, this is before, I think this was while I was away, was from Bay Path, if I'm not mistaken. It was some sort of arrangement there. So don't quote me on that, and I can get you more information on what that arrangement was, Mr. Chairman. But I think that's not fully fleshed out at this point.
So there's still a need basically for a mechanic somewhere.
There certainly is, and there's a need for succession planning too. So I think that's certainly part of the request. But right now we have, between our superintendent and assistant fleet superintendent, there's still a timeline there where we have time to bring somebody in and have them sort of apprentice underneath them. So that's certainly going to be a budget goal moving forward.
I'm assuming then the superintendent is a working superintendent, sounds like.
Yes. Yep. Oh yeah. Yep. They both are.
Yeah. It would have to be. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Your total budget, I mean, other than the 353,000 difference between you and what the town manager recommend, it's still up $164,150 or 14.68% over the prior voted 2021 budget.
That's right.
Okay. I mean, you cover a lot here. I mean, your department is voluminous, and I went through everything, and that was the only thing that caught my eye was the mechanic. And I know you're applying for grants, and I know snow removal and overtime is a crapshoot. I mean, no one knows with the weather. So, and I think this year we're going to fare fairly well, unless Mother Nature calls me, makes me a liar tomorrow or something. But looks like we're out of the woods there. All right, go ahead. I'm just kind of, I don't see anything a lot. Go ahead, Jared. Is there more you want to say on this? I don't want to stop you.
So moving into our highway operating budget, you can see the increase to salaries there is again mostly attributed or fully attributed to the 2.5% annual step increases per the new pay plan instituted for DPW. Services and supplies. This was one of the larger increases in not just in highway, obviously, but in the overall department budget is the annual debt service for the equipment lease purchase financing agreement. So 75,000 of which has been placed into the operating budget. So that was the part of the arrangement there was to build those annual costs into the operating budget. So this you'll see here will be year one of the payments beyond the original appropriation at that October town meeting, that original $150,000. So
what were you able to secure with that money? I mean, what specifically what equipment are we leasing?
So we are looking at a 10-wheel dump truck, a 6-wheel dump truck, both with plows, and then 2 forestry units, one of which will be an article at the upcoming town meeting, though, because it is an additional vehicle in the forestry unit. So the original article, we had requested a forestry aerial bucket truck, and that was to be a 1-unit truck with the chipper body all built in. Since I've come here, since I've talked to some of the folks here and with some other vendors and with actually some private sector tree companies, we've been advised to move away from the single unit truck. And by doing that, we have a 2-truck operation right now as well. So that's worth noting. Both of those vehicles are at the end of their useful life, both the bucket truck and the chipper truck. The chipper truck has a plow on it though as well. So that provides us a safety net in the winter if we need an additional plow truck. So in my mind and in the mind of the other folks here that will be operating this equipment, we didn't want to change our operation there. We didn't want to lose a plow truck. I have to go back to town meeting and actually get the authorization to add that. So it won't add any money to the original appropriation. We'll still use the year one appropriation money, the 150,000 for those 4 vehicles. So that's what we're proposing. It's a 10-wheel dump, a 6-wheel, an aerial bucket truck, and a chipper box truck to accompany the bucket truck.
Okay. And then it's okay. And then next year, each year going forward, it's going to be a $75,000 hit to your budget, basically, for lease payments.
That's right. At least.
Versus capital.
At least, yes. Yep.
And when you look at your increase of 164, we can do the math and subtract 75 in lease payments away from it.
That's right.
Okay. So then in that context, it's not a capital item that we're going to borrowing on one side of the coin. We're getting good interest rates, I'm assuming. I think we are. I hope we are.
Yeah, they'll be around 3%.
Okay, so we're leasing it to own at the end of the lease.
That's right.
Versus borrowing it and putting it on the capital budget. So it's 6 and 1/2 dozen the other. But it looks like your operating budget has increased, like I said, by $164,000, but you take 75 away from it, it really hasn't.
John, if I could interject just a moment, and Jared, if that's okay. This year, the $75,000 that we put in there is going to get us so that we can get up to that $150,000 mark for the lease payment. But it's really kind of discretionary in Jared's budget at this point, because we will be looking to appropriate $150,000 from free cash for the actual second lease payment, if you will.
Okay.
So it's really just trying to get us to, we're going to, in year one, we'll start with half of the amount we need. And then in year two, we'll hopefully can get to that full amount so that we don't have to appropriate free cash every year, so that we have it in the budget, since having multiple vehicles becomes a operational issue, that we want to replace this and have an operational budget.
I see that your note was you're funding it in FY23, 75,000 fully funded. I saw your footnote on that, Katie.
Okay, I just want to make sure that everyone's clear on that. That really, so in fiscal 22, that $75,000 really becomes discretionary for Jared. So if you have a bad winter, it's something he can go to. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a place to go to for salaries, because then we'd have to fund that in fiscal 23 as well. But it's something that can help in a pinch. So I just wanted to put that out there. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
thank you, Katie.
And Jared, to Katie's point, moving deck chairs, your budget is so voluminous and there's so many different, and it's very detailed. I want to compliment you on your time. It took a lot of time to put it all together. You have some latitude with snow and overtime and weather, whether it's good or bad, to move some of the deck chairs around on where you need some of these things within the department. So and you're going to need that latitude, because your department is so vast. You're going to guess wrong in one corner and come out a hero in another. There's no way you're going to get it 100% on every line item here, and there are a lot of line items.
No, we're working through that now. With our current budget, we had not that we had a horrible winter, but we did have especially some equipment failures this winter, and we ran some lines in the deficit. It's a bottom line budget at the end of the day, like you said, Mr. Yule. So, one hand feeds the other, basically. If we have a year with facilities maintenance, as we're kind of undergoing now, where we have an exceptional year with work orders and that sort of thing, we'll absorb it elsewhere where we can. So, like you said, to have that latitude, that really helps us.
Yeah, I mean, look at trees. I mean, that's been that's been a disaster for the town and the whole community. I mean, with the wind we've had, so that there's an area you couldn't forecast the need. Going back to your chipper trucks and stuff, because you've been out on our road a lot at 2 a.m, cleaning up, opening up the roads. So that's my point, that you don't know where the need's going to be within your department, and that your department covers so much that you have to have that latitude. So I got that.
Okay. So continuing on to snow and ice. I broke this out separately. As you can see here, and as I had mentioned just a moment ago, we increased the no change to salaries or overtime or any of the monies that fund our private snowplow contractors, but an increase to the maintenance line just to account for some additional equipment maintenance. Again, we've had not in terms of snow depth this year. We didn't have a real exceptional year, but we did have a lot of call outs, a lot of icing, spot icing events. And the plowing events that we did have were particularly long, some of them and grueling, and that reflected on the equipment. So we had some plows go. And so that's part of the basis of the increase here.
I don't know how my hat's off to your guys, how they plow our roads, the condition of our roads. They must all have to wear football helmets because they're bouncing around on those cabs up and down on those roads to plow them and keep them passable. That's
certainly true. And we hope to, I certainly hope to rectify that with part of our roadway improvement program, if nothing more, to alleviate, their pain. So,
but it's hard on them, but what you're saying is it's also hard on our equipment. So
it is. Absolutely.
We pay double.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So fleet maintenance, looking at salaries. So again, the salary and wage increases you see here, again, per the FY21 DPW pay plan that was instituted. So that represents a 2.5% annual step increase for the 2 personnel in that division, within that division. And a slight increase to general fleet maintenance to be more in line with historical expenditures. And again, with not just our snow and ice plowing operation, but our roads can be particularly hard on the equipment. So we need to account for that here. That's what we're doing.
Okay.
Parks, grounds, cemetery, and forestry. So lump those all into one operating division here. Again, salary wage increases, that's the bulk of the change there, or is the change there. In services and supplies, we had an increase to contract tree care to continue to address our high priority trees. I know that the town took the initiative and appropriated a separate amount to further that effort. So we'll look to do even more work through our operating budget. So that increase is reflected here. Also an increase for tree replacement. And again, that's through the lenses in supporting beautification, and enhancing ecological value. And it also has an impact on stormwater reduction as well. It's something to note that, trees do their part for managing our stormwater. So I'd like to mention that here too. And also an increase to ordinary maintenance, again, more in line with historical expenditures. So that explains the changes here.
Okay.
In conservation, while it's not in a discrete operating division, I just wanted to break it out as a separate service area, and note that there's a slight increase in the salary line for the conservation agent. They're on a biannual review schedule, so their time has come for a performance review and step increase if merited. Service and supplies line, there was a slight increase there. For the de-weeding program to make sure that we're treating McKinstry Pond at the recommended interval. So that's reflected there. And then I included a capital outlay item. I was obviously under the $25,000 mark. So it's built into the operating budget here. And that's for an aeration system to be installed at Carbuncle Pond. And that's in an effort to reduce the risk of algae blooms and the cyanobacteria counts that come as a result. And there's certain thresholds that we need to meet. And during the fall turnover of the pond last year, everything was already closed, but we had some real elevated cyanobacteria counts that if it happened during the summer months, we would have had to close the pond. So this is in an effort to combat the algae blooms. We'll still need to do some regular treatment, but this is a real improvement in providing oxygen to the lake, or the pond rather, so we don't see those elevated counts.
I thought we had that on the capital request items, Jared. I don't know. So I don't know if it's been approved or not. We're going to be talking about it next week. I can't recall off the top of my head if the manager approved that capital request. If so, this would come off your budget, not go on it, right?
I believe that'd be the case, but as far as I know, it's being built in here. So
okay, yeah, I'm fine with
That's correct.
Yeah.
It's not on the capital, just.
Yeah.
Okay. I know it was listed, whether it was recommended or not. That's next meeting. Okay.
And moving on to the sewer enterprise fund.
Yeah.
So our sewer enterprise fund is, as you all well know, it's funded entirely through usage fees, connection fees, betterments, interest earned. So the sewer enterprise fund, we have 414 customers currently. The rate structure is as you see here. Our north service area, $12.35 per 1,000 gallons or kilogallons of consumption or usage. South service area is $16.86. So we propose no changes this year to the sewer rates. Connection fees had changed, I believe, at the end of 2019. So we finally raised our connection fees to be more in line with surrounding communities. Our sewer fees our connection fees were incredibly low. I think a few $100s during my first tenure here, which is pretty much unheard of. So we'll see an increase in revenue based on the increase in those permit fees. You can see overall we're proposing a reduction in the sewer enterprise budget.
Well, usage is down. That's the
Well,
question.
that's exactly right, Mr. Chairman. We're being conservative here with our projected usages. Usages are down, and there's still uncertainty with COVID, right? Things are picking up now. More people are being vaccinated. We hope that we're turning a corner, but we just don't know. So, we're being conservative in our projections.
Is that due to closed businesses, basically?
Yeah, a lot of it for our system's sake is we see in the north service area with schools, when schools weren't in session. That's a huge contributor to our overall usage and revenue. So with schools out and students not in session, or at least in the facility, that's been a huge hit. And likewise in the south service area, we saw that this year with IPG. IPG certainly was seeing the effects or feeling the effects of the pandemic as well, and didn't have as many folks at the facility. So usage was down all around.
Okay. Yeah, down 12.75%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 58, almost $60,000. Yeah.
That's right. So here's just a demonstration of both our operating revenues. Again, you mentioned that it's overwhelmingly funded through usage fees, and then other fees would constitute permit connection fees, drain layers, license fees, that sort of thing, and then betterments and interest earned. And you can see operating expenses are broken down as follows. The lion's share of the pie here is intermunicipal fees that we pay to town of Webster to send our sewer in the south service area on Old Webster Road, send it to the Webster treatment plant. And in the north service area, which is essentially the Oxford Middle School, High School, heading north, and then Thayer Pond Village, we send that up through Auburn. So we pay the town of Auburn, have an intermunicipal agreement with them, and send it through Auburn up to the Upper Blackstone Clean Water Facility in Millbury. And we're assessed fees based on the usage and the flow that we send to that facility. So that's the lion's share, like I said.
It's 11.8%, 58,000. It's all usage. The only thing I saw here, and I think going back to capital request a year or two ago, was maintenance on the pumps. It's down $10,000. And I'm assuming that's because we did replace some of those pumps, didn't we not?
That's just right. Yes, we did do some pump replacements. We've also done. We've also purchased some on-hand spare pumps as well, which is pretty routine to do that. So if in the event that for the pumps that we didn't replace, if we have a failure, we'll have a pump on hand to plug right in, basically. So, and that's basically why we're, based on the reduced revenues projections, we've scaled back our maintenance expenditures, capital outlay expenditures, just to fit within those revenues, rather than propose a rate increase at this point. So, but we may see higher revenues if we have some anticipated commercial connections that may come online. IPG has a couple of buildings that have been constructed already, but were not originally tied in. They're doing some additional work there, building a satellite warehouse, and may take the opportunity to tie in. So that would be revenue both in usage charges and in the connection permit fees. And then if things start to return as they look to be, and going further into the fiscal year, if students are back in school full time, that'll obviously contribute to the flow that we've missed out on from the school facilities. Okay. And then just a note here is that will conduct further investigation into infiltration and inflow issues in the North Service area. So this has been an issue for the past few years. This is essentially in wet weather events, you have water that's entering our sewer system at some point. It could be a defective joint in a pipe, could be through a defective manhole cover, or an illicit discharge, somebody tied in with a sump pump to our sewer, where we send that flow now and it's metered at the point where it goes into Auburn. And then it's obviously tracked as usage when it goes to clean water facility, or the Upper Blackstone Clean Water Facility in Millbury. We pay for that. So we're essentially paying for this water that enters the system that we're not billing any customers for. So if we can get a handle on that, which we had done some smoke testing the end of last year, and nothing alarming came back, but it still warrants further review. And if we can reduce the amount of I&I, we reduce the amount of flow that we're sending, on flow that we can't bill for, then we'll see the intermunicipal fees hopefully come down as a result.
Well, when you reconcile
usage,
when you reconcile the flow you're being charged for and the billing, what's been the difference? I mean, 6 of one, half dozen the other. If I bill $10,000 and I'm getting billed 12, then I know I've got a $2,000 problem.
That's right. It's something that I don't have the figures in front of me, Mr. Chairman. I mean, but it's certainly not. It's something that we can calculate. At least get a roundabout number on that. I mean, we know what we're getting billed. We know what we're getting billed from the other facilities where we send our flow, and we know what we bill out to residents. So
I thought your predecessor, I thought it was something that was significant enough to pursue the difference.
Well, that was exactly, and that's why I think you've seen a rate increase not too long ago, where we've hiked the rates to where we're at currently. Was because of just that.
Yeah, but that's user fee. I mean, I don't want to say this. Okay, but the people that are they're paying for an ineffective system is basically what, as opposed to a system they're actually generating.
Understood. Yes, that's why. I mean, that I think you see the reduction in revenue projections this year. Again, was to put it more in line with historical usage, in usage that we're billing for too. So we're capturing. I understand full well what you're saying. That's not.
I'd like to at some point, not now, but when you have those numbers, you can share them with us as to
Sure.
what the reconciliation is on a monthly basis between what we're being billed and what we're billing.
Of course.
That'll shine the light on what we need to do due diligence with the system.
Of course. Like I said, we have our consultant on board now, again, to do some more investigative work in that area, so we can try to pinpoint where our issues lie.
Okay.
So moving on, municipal fuel budget, pretty straightforward here. You see an increase over the FY21 appropriation, namely to account for uncertainty again in fuel prices. As we emerge from the pandemic, we're see a creep in economic activity. We're seeing a creep in oil prices already. And I think typically those prices only go up as we move into the summer months. So that's the justification for the increase here.
Okay.
And with that, I'll open up to discussion, or if anyone has any questions for me. Appreciate the time.
So go ahead, Joan.
What's the status of the Sacarapa Dam project? It seems it's been going on.
I don't mind just touching base quickly on that. Again, I think I'm more than willing to have a conversation with any and all committee members offline about that project. But we did get bids in last Thursday. We had 12 bidders, and we are reviewing the lowest bidders now, the apparent low bidders, as we call them, following up on their qualifications, their references, making sure that they have the capabilities to perform the work. So that's where we're at the moment. So that'll take a little bit of time before we make any sort of recommendation to move forward.
Currently, their bid, Kennecott, was $926,000, which is, we had borrowed 800, so we're going to be over budget if that bid holds. 126,000, which is a lot less than what you were initially indicating. It was in the 350,000 range where we're going to be short over that 800. So it's good news in the sense that the pain is not as significant as we thought it would be.
That's
So
right.
you did have bids over $1 million too.
We had bids anywhere from 926. The spread was from 926 that you mentioned, Mr.
Right.
Ewell, to 1.5 million. So,
Right. Yeah.
and we bid it. Clearly, it was a competitive bidding market with receiving 12 bids. I mean, we don't typically receive that many for our projects. So it was definitely an attractive project, and we bid it at a competitive time. So
That's good. So your budget basically for public works was, not to revert back, it's going to be almost 250,000 or 8.089% basically. And I mentioned that 75 with the lease vehicles, so you can back that out of the 250 and in your mind, so to speak, where some of that increase came from. But other stuff, basically everything step increases as far as salaries go. And like I said, everything else is kind of a guess because a lot of it's weather driven and storm driven, and you don't know where your need's going to be on a per line basis. So I'm glad you had that latitude to move the deck chairs. The only other thing I could see with the sewer is, offline, if we can get a handle on what needs to be done on that number, whatever that number comes out to be, and get that addressed at some point. But any committee members have any other questions of Jared regarding your budget? Because it's a huge budget and a lot of moving parts. All right, and you're comfortable with the budget. Like I said, that you and the town manager had a huge reconciliation difference there, but you're fine with it. Of course, COVID, we're all in uncharted water. There's nobody that could tell you what tomorrow's going to bring.
that's right. No, we've town manager and I have spoke at length about it, so I feel very comfortable.
Okay, good. All right. No other questions of Jared? Okay, next up, town manager. Jen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent presentation, Jared. And I just want to say, I before I finish up with what I call the ancillary budgets to the committee, we had just a number of small budgets that I wanted to review, most of what I had covered in my joint presentation. So I just wanted to touch base on the following, if I can actually screen share for a second. I just have a very few slides. So let me make sure that that is the right one. Hold on one second. Just make sure. Yeah. Okay. Hold on. All right. Can you guys see it there?
Yes. Yes.
I'm sorry. I don't have my little mouse. So I'm going around here. And let me, for some reason now I got a little pencil thing here. What the heck? Well, I don't know what's happening, but I'm having technical difficulties. I have a little pencil that is not allowing me to share. Hold on. No, it's still not. Well, all right, so I can't get that. I'm sorry, but it's not allowing me to screen share, and I don't think, hold on. Okay, let me see. Maybe I can do it now. Hold on. I think we got it. All righty. Yes, I got it. Okay, so very quickly, we're going to go through just 4 area budgets. The first one's this is not the right, oh God. See, this is what happens. Hold on. This is so it's not supposed to be Board of Selectmen. It's actually supposed to be legal services. So you're getting the wrong presentation that has not been put forward, and I apologize. So the first actual one is legal services, which is always in our budget. Let me start by saying we've increased that by about 5.26%. That is to account for a $10 per hour increase that KP Law in particular has indicated to us. And, overall, that's about a $5,000 increase. And if you look at what we had last year to what we have this year, that is to account for that. And the strategy behind this obviously is legal issues cost money. We need to have good legal teams. We're represented by both KP Law and Myrick O'Connell. And we have different expertises within there. And those things have been very good for us. We've have outstanding several cases that we are pending right now, but we do have everything from personnel matters to enforcement matters, and COVID didn't make it easy either. So it's been a very busy year, and I expect that we'll continue as we go forward. The next item is veteran services. That is an actual area in the budget. As many of you may know, but some of the new members on the committee may not know, veteran services is a statutory obligation. Obviously, we all want to make sure that we provide that for our veterans in town, but it is something through Mass General Law in which we have to actually pay for those benefits. For anything that a veteran is eligible for. And then on the backside, we get reimbursed for about 75%. The catch here is that you have to be able to have someone in the position as a veterans agent. There are other provisions that say that if you don't have a full-time agent, that you must be part of a veterans district, in which we are. We are in a 4-town veterans services district. That is, I put over here on the side, the towns of Auburn, towns of Southbridge, towns of Charlton, and ourselves. The increase that you see in the budget this year is to give a little bit of increase in both hours and supplies to our new part-time veterans agent, who is homegrown right here, Rob Rassicott. He's doing a great job. Just starting. And however, he has a good backup team, and that is the budget accounts for an $8,000 payment that we make as part of this veteran service district. It is an obligation, and it is a relationship through an actual creation of a district that the Board of Selectmen in each one of these towns actually approve. And just to give you an idea, out of the 4 towns, we have consistently been the highest in terms of the number of beneficiaries. It has fluctuated and will fluctuate this year coming. Just to give you an idea, this is one of those areas of a budget which can go up dramatically depending on who moves into a community. The obligation that the town has is to provide the veterans agent with both the education and the technical expertise and certification to be able to not only access the modules both at the state and the federal level, but it's to also have to abide by very strict confidentiality, because we're dealing with people's both health and mental health benefits and records. And so to say that we have 19 persons at the moment, that has gone up as high as 23. And it's been lower as much as 17. So we're pretty much consistent with at least budgeting, and you will see in the budget, we've provided for about a $19,000 increase in the actual benefits, and that is going up from $175,000 to $194,000. So that actually goes strictly to the pockets of veterans within our community. And the agent hours and the increase in supplies, because our new agent wants to do a lot more outreach, is about $6,000, so that they can provide more accessible hours for our beneficiaries and people who are looking to see what they qualify for. The next area in the budget, which I call it, another ancillary budget, because it helps support overall functions within our fiscal budget every year, and that's the Historical Commission. It may be a small part of our budget, but it is certainly an important and mighty voice in the way that we think of the quality of both the history and the culture of this town. There's really no significant change. Actually, there's a slight reduction of 1.11%. And the charge of the Historical Commission is to preserve, protect, and develop the historical and archaeological assets. If you look at the composition of the commission, we have just a total wealth of information and what I call retained memory of all of the things that have been important to the history of this community. The commission is eager to return to work. COVID has made that very difficult for some of the regular hands-on types of work that the commission does. And however, we once again are going to actually staff a clerk position, which just recently was filled. And our chairwoman, Jean O'Reilly, had worked with both myself and, more importantly, with our HR director to find the right person for that. So there's really no big change with that. But I will tell you that we do actively seek out grants. And one of the things that we've partnered with that came from my office, but has really also comprised at least 2 members of the Historic Commission to weigh in with regards to the monument, historic rehabilitation and preservation grant that we received. And I'm getting very excited because Memorial Day is one of our celebrations, and that's one of the last items we're going to talk about in the budget, but we'll be around the corner. And our monuments, we've been seeing some people out there who had actually taken down one of our very large plaques, and it's being refurbished, and it looks just absolutely stunning. And they're going to be putting that back. And they have been working on all of these other historic monuments. And we'll have a new small monument on the actual common to replace something that was really overlooked for many years. So the Historical Commission has worked with us on those kinds of projects. Obviously, the large project that we just have completed with the library was a major historic preservation effort. So I know that the commission is very pleased with the efforts that the administration here had taken on to actually be proactive, to seek out funding at sources, and then get their input and their skill to help us shape the project. So those are 2 good examples of how the Historical Commission and the management of the town are working together. Despite the small budget, we make the money grow in different ways. And then the last portion here of ancillary budgets is an area in the actual budget called celebrations that was there long before I came here. And what it basically you're seeing here is there's really no change, but the purpose is really to fund events that both promote community spirit, honor our veterans, and help bring people to our common areas in the community. And you'll see there is pretty much no change in that. There is sometimes fluctuations. Sometimes we spend more on flags, and other times we'll spend more on lights on the common, and then other times we will spend more on actual, benefit of an event that is going to be specifically for our veterans. Like we had a very successful pre-COVID, wonderful Veterans Day luncheon with over 150 veterans. We grew that event out of a big decision that I had made with a couple of our veterans and my management staff, and we from a 30-person attended roughly luncheon to 150. And I'm hoping this coming fall that we'll be able to do that. That Memorial Day, I don't believe we'll be able to achieve that because of COVID. So, but as we enter into the new normal, I will say this, that I think people will be eager to, partake in parades and some of our celebrations that we've had to put off to the wayside. So it is a very important aspect of our budget, no different than a DPW budget or a public safety budget. Some people would argue sometimes they're just as important to complement. And so those are the areas, like I said, that were not really addressed, in all the previous presentations. And I think that the committee has really benefited this year from having some really wonderful presentations done. I appreciate the attentiveness. I've been able to look at all of these presentations in advance and have, had the great opportunity of dialoguing and with each department head and how they're going to present and what they feel is important to present. And it's really been, I think, a great team building initiative among all the department heads. And I think for those people who've been on the finance committee for many years, especially Joan and John and Mr. Bacon, I think you probably have seen a really improved delivery, and I hope that's been helpful. I feel it's been helpful even to me as a manager, because it allows me to even see more in the heads of all of our department heads and what they see is important and how they articulate it to the community. And with that, that would conclude the ancillary budgets. I can certainly answer any questions anybody has. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead, Joan.
Under the celebrations,
Yep.
it isn't much, but I noticed that for Memorial Day, we're using Auburn Florist. Now, I know they used to be in town, but wouldn't it be better to use one of our local florists?
So I don't know if that's actually true.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
That in. I think it might be a placeholder from a previous budget.
Okay.
I imagine that the veterans that are actually ordering wreaths and flowers have a specific place where they would actually draw that from. So I'm not aware of that, but I would say it's definitely a placeholder, and that's what it is. And it hasn't been changed because that's background information that probably got put in, and we don't know from one year to the next. Perhaps if you put it in, you might go with a new florist in town, or more than one florist in town. But point, I'll follow up with that to make sure.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's a good question.
To the town manager, I'd like to comment on the presentations. They've been well thought out, and they've anticipated a lot of our questions, a lot of my questions. And I think it put a lot of thought. It helped them as department heads focus on what they're spending their money on and put meaning to the dollars. So it's not just dollars. It helped them set goals. I understand. A good example tonight was HR, the challenges ahead of them, the money that can be saved. Another example is with Jarrett, and I know I asked offline with the sewer treatment, but there are other things on his budget, line by line, that I looked at, and I could go over them all. But I mean, he answered almost 100% of my questions that I would have asked, and I think everybody stepped up their game, and that's to your credit, town manager, because these meetings are recorded and people should look at them. So they come fully informed at town meeting, knowing that we've done our due diligence in asking these questions and understand how these budgets are put together and the thought behind the number and the goals for the money that we're going to spend and what we're trying to achieve, because it's all about services and people, and that's what we're all here for the community. So I think things have greatly improved. And I think it's a benefit to both the department heads, and it helped us. And I think it helped inform the community as to where their money is going and why it's going to where it's going. So, like I said, they've anticipated the questions, and that's to your credit, town manager, and getting them together to think about where their goals are and where the money should be spent and how it should be spent. So it's been a very enlightening and rewarding process this year versus prior years. And that's to your credit and your department head's credits. I commend you all for your efforts.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really appreciate that feedback, and I'll make sure that all the department heads collectively get that message as well.
Good. They've done a great job. Very commendable.
I would second that, John.
Yeah, Roger says he'll second that as well. So I mean, having been on this committee with Joan, Roger, and I for a while, it was heartwarming to hear what they had to say, and they had the answers right there when I asked the questions. There was no hesitation. So very, very well done. I can't thank you all enough. I mean, it's been a pleasure to go through these budgets and have that dialogue that we've been able to have. And hopefully the meetings being recorded, the community will take the time to listen to some of the meetings. And then when they come to town meeting and we say the finance committee recommends, they'll know that that's just one word, but there's a lot of questions behind that recommendation, if that's what we're going to offer to the town meeting. So very, 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 to your credit and to the department head's credit, my hat's off to you. This has been head and shoulders above any other year that I've been on this committee. So thank you again, town manager. All right, that being said, on the agenda, any new business, old committee request, old business, new business, committee request, because next week I think we start capital request, if I'm right, Trish?
Yep.
The town manager's recommendation of the capital request that was already been put forth to us. So we'll hear what your
Yeah, the
thoughts on
capital public hearing.
capital public hearing on her thoughts on what she considers priority to fund from a capital request standpoint. That's next meeting next week on the 4th, if I'm right.
No,
Fifth, I got my
the
5th,
7th.
7th, pardon me. Capital.
Seventh.
Next
That's right.
Wednesday.
4th is Easter
Yeah.
Sunday. I knew I had something on my mind for the 4th. Yeah, the 7th. Okay. So with that being said, if there's nothing else from the committee members, any thoughts or any comments from any of the committee members going forward? If not, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Okay, so I hear a second. Roger?
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
Mr. Yule.
Yes.
Mr. Bacon.
Yes.
Miss Mazeka.
Yes.
Miss Casey.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you.